It is now 6:30, and I just ask that you would please join me in the invocation, and afterwards we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day and this week that we are approaching for Thanksgiving. Even as we were hearing sirens just recently ago, we just continue to pray for our community, for their safety, for their health. We also pray for all of our public officials that are out to continue to help us to be safe and healthy as well. We ask for wisdom and guidance in all that we do this evening, and we just thank you that we're here for this opportunity to serve your people. And we just say thank you for this in all things. And in Jesus' name, and all those that agree, please say amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I now call the meeting to order, and this time we would like to make the following announcement. The following planning and zoning item was advertised for this meeting but has been postponed to the January 16th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. And the property that will be reposted is for a public hearing, AP 1703, Leslie Morrison of Stockbridge, Georgia, appealing a zoning advisory board decision to deny a conditional use request for a religious facility. Again, that public hearing has been postponed to January the 16th. We'll now move to the acceptance of the agenda. Are there any changes or revisions other than what's just been stated? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? The agenda is accepted as amended. We'll now move into our consent agenda items. The following agenda items shall be considered on the consent. We have a resolution from our Public Safety Fire Department, a resolution to accept a grant from the Georgia Emergency Management Agency in the amount of $92,600 for the purchase of hazardous materials equipment. From the Henry County Department of Transportation, we have a resolution authorizing speed humps to be installed within the Cobblestone Estates subdivision. And then we have two district attorney resolutions. One, a resolution accepting the Victims of Crimes Act sub-grant and approving the creation of a victim services advocate position in the district attorney's victim services department. And then that second district attorney resolution is to approve the Victims of Crime Act sub-grant funding for the continuation of contract for early notification advocate position in the district attorney's victim services program. Are there any of these items that the board wish to be removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, we're asking for a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? This ends our consent agenda. We'll now move into item 6 by our district attorney regarding a resolution to approve the contract between the Henry County Board of Commissioners, Flint Judicial Circuit, and the Henry County District Attorney's Office. And we also have our district attorney here, and also Deborah Lisa. Okay, please feel free to come forward. And this is regarding professional counseling services to assist victims of felony crime through the VOC grant.
That's correct.
Good
evening.
Good evening.
Chair,
Good evening.
members of the board. This is basically a proposed resolution that this county and this board approve another contract for a 12-month period for contract services, for counseling services for crime victims, and next of kin primarily for people who have been the victims of, where their loved ones have been the victim of violent crime and homicidal crime. We've at the end of a previous one-year contract where we have contracted services through the grant. So these funds do not cost this county any additional funds or anything like that. We're just asking the board to enter into another agreement for 12 months with this particular licensed counselor so that she can continue her services to victims of crime in this county. And like I said, we've done this before, so we just want to put it back on your agenda before you, as that the previous contract has ended. The actual contractor is Deborah Elzie, who is a local proprietor who's doing excellent work with our victims and the next of kin of people who have been the victims of crime and homicidal crime in our community. We are just asking that these funds be administered through this particular county, and it's going to be about $3,000 over the year. The counseling services that are provided are about a couple of times a month. So we're talking 8 hours a month of counseling services that are provided to people who need them. And our office also takes in interns to match volunteer hours for the grant monies that we receive through the federal agency. So like I said, we're just asking for the funds to be administered by the board and the county, and it's not going to cost the county any additional funds. And I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you. We've heard the presentation by our district attorney, Darius Patillo. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Prince?
The counselor, was this bid out or anything, or was this open to any kind of resumes being submitted or anything like that?
It was not, as far as I understand. Originally, when it was agreed upon, this was a counselor who had already been working with our office for some time over the years through person-to-person counseling agency. So the district attorney's office had a prior relationship with this individual and was familiar with the work. So it was not bid out, as far as I understand.
Okay.
Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Clemens. Is there a second? Second. A second by Commissioner Holmes. Any further questions or comments? Okay, Commissioner Clemens.
Let me just say one thing. First of all, I appreciate my colleague, Commissioner Prince, asking about the bidding process, because I know as a board and as a county, we're moving to make sure that there's ample opportunities for everyone. This is not taxpayers' dollars from a county perspective of Henry County. So I want to make sure that that's clarified, that this is a grant that we're receiving from the state or federal. I don't know where the funding is coming from, but I do know that it is not a local tax-paying base. And so I'm sure that in order for us to continue to get these funds at the district attorney's office, the judicial circuit of Henry County is making sure that we're in compliance with however we need to do this. So I just want to be clear, make sure there's no gray area of whether or not we bid it, and I appreciate my colleague for talking about that, because we are moving towards that. But this is not, this particular item does not fall into that category where we're looking at what's happening with tax dollars that are coming into our local county.
That's correct. This entire contract will be funded by federal dollars, federal grant funds, and it's has been awarded to not only our office, but several offices, DA's offices throughout the state. And those funds have been issued by the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and as stated earlier, it's through VOCAL funding, which is the Victim of Crimes Act. I
just wanted to clarify that, because that's where we're moving as a county. So, but this particular grant does not fall under that category. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we had a first and a second. We're now calling for a vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Consider the resolution approved. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you. We'll now move into item 7 regarding a resolution for the airport approving the 5-year capital improvement program for FY 2019 to 2023, again for the Henry County Airport, and we're asking Mr. Tony to come forward with the presentation.
Small there. Good evening, Madam Chair Wood, members of the board.
Good evening.
I have before you this evening a resolution approving the 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2019 through 2023 for the Henry County Airport. As some background, the Airport Capital Improvement Program provides grants to public entities for the planning and development of public use airports that are included in the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. And GDOT, Georgia Department of Transportation, requires that a 5-year CIP or capital improvement plan be submitted annually to identify these proposed and speculative projects that we may undertake within that 5-year time frame. And so in order to seek funding, state, federal funding for these projects, those projects must be listed on the 5-year CIP. And one thing to note is we're not obligated to fund any of the projects that are shown on there, that we're not an agreement with GDOT. And so as part of the process, what happens, just to understand, it's a 5-year work program for the airport. And as I said, it includes those projects that require funding. And how it works is, in just particularly keeping attention to the first year, fiscal year 2019, those projects are what we look at to our most current needs and most accurate needs first, and then the other projects fall in line second, and then the last 3 years are kind of your forecast years. And as part of that process, I meet with our airport consultant, Croy Engineering, along with Georgia Department of Transportation, our aviation project manager with Georgia Department of Transportation, and discuss these projects and our progressive efforts in planning and kind of talk about what funding might be available moving forward. And so just want you guys to have an understanding that that program is it's almost like a wish list, but it's a thought out and planned wish list in concert with GDOT. And what happens is that first fiscal year that's shown on there, those projects are whatever funding is available is how those projects will be, funded. So if funding is available for those projects, then that's what we will get. And what will happen is in the summer of next year, that money would be allocated. They would send an allocation letter to us for whatever they approved, and then in the next month we would send a response saying that we would agree to fund our portion of that project, and then you would then have a contract in place for those projects. So and then it goes to what I was saying before. We're not obligated to fund those projects until an agreement is set in place. So.
Okay, well, that's a little blurred up on the screen. We have a copy
Yeah, it's
here,
pretty
but is there
small.
any way we can clarify that up there so the citizens can see it as well? Okay, we've heard the presentation from Mr. Tony. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Clemens, you got a question?
I want to take this time to say to Michael Tony that as a commissioner for the county, I'm very, very pleased with the work that you've done out at the airport. I thank you for your hard work and the impact that I've seen that has happened at the airport over the last year. It's been remarkable. I know that this is a county-owned airport, and I've been very invested in the airport project down to the fact that I think about $750,000 of funding out of the District 2 that we've looked at moving to the airport as an individual district, because I believe so much in the airport project and just the hard work that you've done working with the FAA to make sure that Henry County is on the map for aviation and travel in the county and in the state of Georgia. It has been remarkable. So I just want to thank you for the efforts. And I saw that you moved up on the CIP, that runway expansion, which
Yes.
is very important. And just talk a little bit about that. I know that coming before the board, there will be a resolution coming soon about whether we transfer those funds from District 2 over to the airport. And I just want the board to understand how important this airport should be to all of us in this county. I think we've paid several millions of dollars as a county to have this airport, and we've got to invest in it in order to get a return. It's not supposed to be a financial benefit, but it's a community and a state benefit that we should be getting. So just talk a little bit about that, the changes in the CIP from last year.
Sure. First of all, thank you, by the way, for the comment. If I may, and it is hard to read, I apologize for that. There's a lot of information on that one spreadsheet, but if we can concentrate on fiscal year 19, and I'll say a couple of things. The safety projects are the projects that are going to have the higher priority with Georgia Department of Transportation. And if you can understand, all of the airports in Georgia will be submitting their CIPs at the end of this month. So as you can imagine, they're going to be inundated with all of these CIPs all at one time at the end of this month, and they're going to be reviewing those, which will then turn out to be the allocation letters that are given to all of the airports come June of 2018. So if you go down the list, the way we have it prioritized, and we've been working on a couple of items, and you will see, and I'll list them, they're listed as reimbursements on here, but the first item is the erection of the airport perimeter fence. that will, and you will see in later years, it'll be phased out as we are ultimately trying to have perimeter fencing to, you know, cover the entire perimeter of the airport. So that's the first item, that being a safety item that was listed first priority. And then the next three items are all reimbursement items for, one, the design of that airport perimeter fence, and the updating our terminal area plan, and then doing a disadvantaged business enterprise plan update as well. And those are all shown as reimbursements because those are items that we upfronted the cost on. We met with GDOT and you know, basically got soft approval to do these projects, and so we upfronted those costs, and so now we're asking for reimbursement of those items. And then the next two items is the terminal area apron parking for the new terminal building. That's the next item under design. And then going back to the last item, which Commissioner Clemens was talking about, is the justification study for what we're trying to do is ultimately extend the runway. Right now, we're sitting at 5,500 feet, and we're ultimately trying to progress to 7,100 feet. So that ultimate runway extension justification study was a little bit further down the list, but we threw it on this, you know, in hopes of trying to get funding for it for this year to go ahead and start the process, which will include having to do a justification for the extension. And then the other items would be some of your environmental and things like that that would go with it.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. Well, hearing none, you've heard the presentation. We now call for a motion.
Chair, I would like to motion that we move to approve the Henry County Airport CIP.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, or any other questions or comments before we vote? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Tony. The resolution for the airport's capital improvement program is approved. Thank you. We're now moving into our planning and zoning items, and as a reminder, we made an announcement at the beginning of the meeting but for anyone who may have missed it, the following planning and zoning item was advertised for this meeting, but it's been postponed to January the 16th, January 16th of 2018's Board of Commissioners meeting. And the property that we were speaking of is that of Leslie Morrison of Stockbridge, Georgia, appealing a zoning advisory board decision to deny a conditional use request for a religious facility located at 648 Ward Road. So again, that's in District 5, and that has been postponed. So we'll now move into our first planning and zoning item tonight, which is RZ 1714, the battery source of Thomasville, Georgia, requesting a rezoning from C2 to C3, and we'll ask Mr. Stacy Jordan to make his presentation on this property.
Good evening, Chair Wood.
Good evening.
Commissioners, the item before you tonight, the subject property is located in the Shops at Henry Crossing Shopping Center. This is in the vicinity of our movie theater and also the LA Fitness. On the overhead and in your exhibit books, the subject property is indicated in this green hatched area, and it's a subdivision of an existing lot that's right behind the Kaufman Tire. The subject property is zoned C2, as is the balance of the shopping center. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from C2 to C3 for the purpose of a battery source retail center that will also sell golf carts. And so for that reason, they are required to have a C3 in order to permit that use. The future land use map indicates commercial in red, and so you can see that our subject property is indicated for commercial uses. Staff has evaluated the applicant's request. The applicant's request was heard by the Zoning Advisory Board on September the 28th, and we do recommend approval with 6 conditions. And for clarity's sake, I'd just like to draw your attention to condition number 5. And at the end, what we would like to do is to include a phrase by ordinance or by variance. And the reason for that is because the applicant has received a variance from one of the requirements of the Highway Corridor Overlay District, namely for roof pitch, and we don't want to remove that variance by way of a condition. So the Zoning Advisory Board does recommend approval of the applicant's request with these conditions, and we would recommend with that change.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here for their presentation as well?
Hey there,
Good evening.
I'm Ross Glass. I'm with Battery Source, part of the family that owns the company. But thank you guys for having us tonight and giving us the opportunity. But basically, all we want to rezone the property for is to be able to sell and service the golf cars. The other part of our business, the battery part of our business, is the retail sale of all types of batteries, from wristwatches all the way up to excavators, and that part of the business falls within the C2. The C3, C2 doesn't allow for the sale of the golf cars, and that's the only reason why we'd like to rezone the property. If it wasn't for that, we wouldn't even be here. We feel like our business would be good for the residents of Henry County as well as the businesses. We feel like we're a good fit, and we appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the applicant?
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Wayne Smith, DW Smith Design Group. Been working with Ross and his family. This is actually the 4th site in Henry County that we've evaluated in hopes of locating a facility here. We're working on some stores in other communities nearby, but we're excited about the opportunity of them being able to have their business here in Henry County.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the board before we begin the public hearing?
I'll wait that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. This is a public hearing, so we'll ask you to be seated, and then we'll see if there's anyone that wants to speak in opposition or in favor. So this is a public hearing regarding RZ 1714 and persons wishing to be heard in opposition to the request. The group in total will have 10 minutes to present their opposition, and of course, those that wish to speak in favor of, they will have also a total of 10 minutes together. So at this time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, would you please come forward now to state your name and address for the record? Again, anyone wishing to come and speak in opposition, will you please come and state your name and address for the record? Thank you. At this time, 10 minutes will be allocated for a group of anyone that wants to speak in favor of this property. Again, anyone wishing to speak in favor, would you please come forward now? Okay, hearing none, this concludes our public hearing. And again, now, if we have any questions or comments from the board, I think there were some questions. Commissioner Barr?
Yes, Stacy. The applicant, he's agreed to these 6 conditions.
It's my understanding that, yes, the applicant has agreed to these 6 conditions as stated at the Zoning Advisory Board.
Okay, and you said there was a change you wanted to make? What?
Yes, condition number 5, it says the building shall be of a similar architectural style to other buildings within the Shops at Henry Crossing development and shall comply with the Highway Corridor Overlay District development standards, because it does fall within the Highway Corridor Overlay District. But because the applicant has received a variance for roof pitch from those standards, we would recommend that we include the phrase by ordinance or by variance.
Okay. Other questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Prince?
So I'm understanding they've already got the variance from the ZAB on the roof slope?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing now, the floor is now open for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Second. And there's a second. Any further discussions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move into our next public hearing of COMP AM 1707 Invictus Development of Tampa, Florida, requesting an amendment to the comprehensive plan for the property located at 4205 West Village Parkway. And again, Mr. Jordan Bruxell,
attorney to recuse myself. My wife's company is actually doing recruiting for medical providers and retail establishment for the area, so I'm gonna call myself out.
okay, thank you. Okay.
Good evening, Chair
Good
Wood,
evening. Good
Commissioners.
evening.
The subject property before you tonight is located on West Village Parkway in the Ellenwood Village area. And you can see from our aerial that this is just to the west of where West Village Parkway trends to the north and intersects Fairview Road. This area is within the Fairview Road overlay district. And so this fact has factored in very heavily with staff's evaluation. This hearing is to change the future land use map. And you'll notice from the exhibit and also in your exhibit books that the subject property is hatched in green here, and the land use designation is this pale yellow, which stands for low-density residential between 1 and 2 dwelling units per acre. The proposed development from the applicant is for 16 dwelling units per acre. And so this future land use map will need to be changed from low-density residential to high-density residential to support this request for rezoning, which will be our subsequent hearing. This map shows the Fairview Road overlay district, and it's very difficult to see that there are character areas within this overlay district. The subject property is here. It's located within a portion of the residential character area of the greater Fairview Road overlay district. So the purpose of this character area is to support the commercial, which is planned to be along Fairview Road. So staff has evaluated the applicant's request. We have noted the purpose of this highway corridor overlay district. We're keeping in mind the fact that we're working on an update to our comprehensive plan, which includes our future land use map. And so staff does recommend approval of the applicant's request for the purpose of supporting the rezoning. And the Zoning Advisory Board heard this request as well on September the 28th, and the Zoning Advisory Board does recommend approval of the applicant's request.
Okay. We've heard this presentation. Now, are there any questions or questions or comments here before we actually invite up? Is there the applicant here as well that we need to speak to? Okay, we invite up the applicant on this part as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Good
I'm
evening.
Doug Dillard with Persley, Freeze and Torgerson, and we represent the applicant. As Stacy has told you, we came before the Zoning Advisory Board, and they've recommended approval with certain conditions on both the zoning and the comp plan, and they did approve a parking variance because this is a 62 and older development. So the staff's recommendations for approval and the conditions contained therein are acceptable to us. But I think it would be helpful for you to hear from the applicant relative to what their plans are. I have given you a little presentation. We had the PowerPoint that, well, there you go, you're working it anyway, huh? Okay. We had a PowerPoint, so they're going to use it here to sort of go through it. Then we're here to answer any questions, and if there's any time left for rebuttal, I'd like to reserve that. Thank you. I would like to introduce Richard Cavalieri.
Okay.
Commissioners, thank you for having me. Rick Cavalieri with Invictus Development. We are the potential developers of this senior facility. It's a 62-year and older. It's a combination of affordable housing and market rate housing. I just want to be clear on that. It's 80% affordable and 20% market rate housing. We're proposing, this is adjacent to the Nidus development. In fact, Nidus is the owner of this property, and we are working with them to try to bring a senior facility to help basically build a built-in clientele for their property. They have the emergency care facility urgent care that they've already constructed and is in use right now. They're going to build a medical office center and hopefully an ambulatory surgery center along with the balance of the retail, townhomes, et cetera, that is in their plan. So This is a picture which I'm sure you're all familiar with of the Nidus development. This is a conceptual site plan of what we were proposing on the property that's adjacent to Nidus. Right now, it's just a single-family residential. It'll be a combination of a 3-story building. There's some topography on the site going down, so we're going to have to step down the building at one point. This is showing a 1-to-1 parking ratio, which we feel is much more than adequate. We've done this in several senior facilities in other areas and have had no parking issues. That variance was approved by the zoning board, so that's our goal, is to create a 1-to-1 parking ratio. This 3-story building is all internal corridor. The amenities are internal to the building. It's about 60% 1-bedroom units, 40% 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. It's partially funded by tax credits, so the tax credits ensure that you'll have compliance from several sources to keep the property maintained throughout its lifetime. One is through the Georgia DCA. They're the tax credit authority for the state of Georgia. The other is HUD. There'll be a HUD loan on this property. And then we'll have an investor that buys those tax credits, which will be most likely a financial institution, and they will maintain the compliance on the property also. Along with us as developers, we'll be the underlying owner of the property, so we'll want to make sure that that property is maintained. We have a property management company, Royal American, who manages about 18 to 20 properties in the Atlanta area right now. They're an excellent property management. They manage Antioch, I don't know if you're familiar with that, and several other local establishments. So there's one in McDonough that they manage. Also, those are the two, I think, in Henry County. They have several in Decatur. Sure. Our architect is Martin Riley Architects. They're out of Decatur. And I just wanted to show you some of the samples of similar facilities that they've designed and are currently in existence. So this will give you an idea of what we're looking at as far as a facility. And here's another similar situation, just a little bit different style, but again, a 3-story senior facility. So it'll give you an idea of what we're looking at for the property. If I could answer any questions, if you have any.
Thank you. That concludes our presentation relative to the comp plan. The zoning's probably not going to be much different.
Yes.
But we're available to answer any questions, and if there is time, Madam Chairman, if there is opposition, I'd like to reserve some for rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board before we begin the public hearing aspect? Commissioner Barnes.
Yes, I've got a question. I see that you're limited to 62 and older, but would you have any problem adding a condition that all of them have ADA compliance?
There'd be fair housing as far as we'll have, ADA compliance is not a problem. Full handicap units for me is a problem. We'll have 5% full handicap units, but when you talk ADA, they'll all be ADA accessible units, if that's what you're asking. So they'll have clearances, et cetera, for ADA accessibility, but as far as full handicap, which has its whole separate thing, that would be an issue for me. A lot of people don't prefer some of the additional things that you have to do for handicap units.
Will these units have elevators?
Yes, elevator served.
Okay, other questions or comments before the public? Commissioner Prince?
Just some comments here. I can see the need for this in the county and in the 5th District. My concern is the location. I'm going to say this is a gateway development and gateway to apartments and et cetera, which we're trying to get away from. Not real thrilled with your product either. It looks like a hotel to me. I'm going through your renderings here. I'm not terribly impressed with your product. There's several different products in here. Which one are you proposing for Henry County?
Well, honestly, we haven't determined completely. Typically, we have to do at least 40% brick on every wall side of the building, and then we'll probably mix that with some hardy board or something like that. So,
Stacy, does the overlay up there, does it have architectural standards?
Yes, sir, the overlay does have architectural standards, and they'll simply be required to meet those standards by ordinance.
Comments from the board before we begin the public hearing? Okay, thank you. Well, now, this is a public hearing for Comp AM 1707, and persons wishing to be heard in opposition to this request will have a total of 10 minutes. And likewise, those who want to speak in favor will have 10 minutes. So anyone wishing to speak in opposition, will you please come forward now? And will you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. I'm David Kimbrough. I'm 117 Overbrook Place, Stockbridge, Georgia. I live in District 5. My concerns is not totally in opposition, to this development, because there's a need for senior housing, and I'm one of those betweeners who have kids and adult and aging parents, that have lived in similar facilities. But in keeping with the master design of the commercial development and with how the land has been segmented, really with a commercial property, my only fear is like one of our commissioners said, this could be a gateway to just other multi-unit developments. And our biggest fear is a multi-unit environment that starts out upscale, but because of demand or other issues, as the properties age, the rent and standards of the requirements to live there may decrease and just kind of bring in an additional element to the area. You guys may be familiar with what we call the duplexes that are going back towards Yellow Jackets, Hot Dogs Place, and around that general area. And when I first moved in 20 years ago, those multi-unit condos or apartments or duplexes were somewhat reasonable in price, but over the years have really declined, and I think caused some of the stresses and problems that we're having in the area can be indirectly, attributed to, that particular area itself. So if I could have more information, on this, or maybe we would have gotten into the process a little bit earlier. But if I did have to take a stance right now, it would be against this because of just lack of information and, to get it out, not for myself, but only for my, people in my subdivision and other subdivisions to feel comfortable with this proposal or this recommendation. Thank you.
Okay.
I don't live in District 5, but we've got enough apartments coming in now. Y'all have already authorized a bunch coming in to Hampton, and then we got, well, mostly in Hampton, but we need to kind of put this on hold till we kind of get our county back into alignment with everything that's coming in. You're about to have a boom, I think, in housing, and I don't think we need any more apartments. I'm asking Mr. Barham to vote no on this, please.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, I'm sorry.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Chandra Lemons, Overbrook Subdivision, 307 Cotillion Drive in Stockbridge. I am here in opposition to the presentation, considering that there's already a senior citizen facility going up on Rock Quarry Road. There is enough overdevelopment in our area, and I know that we are looking at expanding the infrastructure on Fairview Road to accommodate additional growth, but I think that we have enough potential apartment buildings, and my concern is the same as Mr. Prince, that this will be a gateway opportunity for other multi dimensional housing coming into the area. Our schools are already overburdened, and I just don't want to see that happen. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Henry Angel, 101 Overbrook Place, Stockbridge, Georgia. Overbrook subdivision, I am too against this building of this facility, mainly because of, I think we also are booming, and I think this is going to be a bad influence, if I could say that, on this particular area. I want to keep this area beautiful. I've been here 20-some years, and I want to make sure it stays this way. So I'm in opposition of this building. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Calling again. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? We'll now call for anyone wishing to speak in favor, and then we'll allow the applicant to come first. Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Last call. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Okay, well, this concludes our public hearing on this matter, so we'll now invite the applicant and staff to come back again.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, I'll be very brief. You know, this is a logical transition from single family into a commercial node. As you can see, we're in the midst of a commercial activity there. And these are not traditional apartments. These are age-restricted, 62 and above. There's no impact on schools, very little impact on transportation. And I understand that you've got a transportation system for senior citizens. They can pay $1 or $2 and go wherever they need to in the county. So this is not a typical, quote, apartment deal. Duplexes and townhomes that were built 20 years ago are not comparable to what we're talking about here today. This is a age-in-place community. This is a place where those single-family homeowners that live in this area, they want to scale down their life and their lifestyle. I'm one of them. I had a big house in Stone Mountain. I now live in Buckhead in a 2,000 square foot condo, and I've died and gone to heaven, I'm just going to tell you. So the age and place situation where you can stay in your community and still be a part of that community and scale down your lifestyle after your kids are gone, et cetera, is where we're headed. This is not a traditional apartment deal. And the impact on schools is zero because it's 62 and above. There don't be any children in this development. Also, your zoning advisory board granted a variance for parking. The traffic will be minimal here. So to us, this provides a logical transition from commercial into the single-family neighborhoods located close by. It's consistent with the mixed-use environment which you want along Fairview Road and Panola Road. It's consistent with that. It's not a traditional apartment deal. And we just submit to you that the opposition has really provided no empirical evidence for you to consider in denying this. And I would remind you that the Zoning Advisory Board approved the variance. Your staff has recommended approval of this comprehensive plan and the zoning that you're going to hear immediately after this. So the whole concept of what we are proposing fits the overlay, fits your vision for the future, and we would ask that you approve the comp plan amendment. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll now ask, are there any questions or comments from the board? Again, any questions or comments from the board? The floor is now open for a motion.
I'm still reviewing. I have a question for Stacy.
Okay, just a moment. We'll hold the motion time. So,
I have a question for staff. Is this a comp? Right now, we're on a comp plan
Yes.
amendment, correct?
Yes, ma'am. This is the comprehensive plan amendment, and this future land use map is a part of that comprehensive plan. And so they need to change this future land use map as our policy guide. Right now, it's calling for low-density residential between 1 and 2 dwelling units per acre. They need for it to be 16 to support their subsequent rezoning request. And so that's the reason why they're coming forward at this time.
Other questions or comments from the board? Well, I'd like to make a comment. Actually, I do agree that we don't want to move to any low-quality apartments. I think that you've heard that consistently from us. I have actually spoken to some of the members or residents over in that area about this particular development. I've driven over there as well. The age restriction is what interests me, and the fact that we are a growing community in age, and we've got to plan to develop some housing for our seniors. The location of this is along, actually almost right next to an urgent care center. Not far from that, of course, we spoke about, the other development along the highway, and of course, the West Village Parkway is along a major corridor as well. So there is some level of residential, but again, it seems to be an area where it can be buffered from other residential. So it was something that is of interest, and I just wanted individuals to know where I am with that, because I did view and also listen to some of the constituents that are not represented tonight as well. So those are my comments. So at this time, are there any other comments or questions from the board? At this time, we're now open the floor for a motion. At this time, we call for a motion.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there?
Based on the recommendation of staff.
Commissioner, would that include all the conditions recommended by staff?
If we're only conditioning the comp use plan, yes.
Oh, there are no conditions coming out.
Okay, we've got a motion. Is there a second? Okay, calling again. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion fails. Okay.
We'll need to call for another motion.
Okay. So now call for another motion.
Chairman, I make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny. Now calling for a second motion.
Second.
Have a second motion to deny. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I do have a comment.
Yes.
What concerns me on this particular project right here is the future zoning of around this area, and how long can we keep the 62 and older community, because 10 years from now, where we're going to be with that. So it could, that's what concerns me, and I'm going to vote for denying this as well. So.
Okay, do you want to address that question? The question a comment that was made, how can you guarantee that this 10 years from now will remain?
Yes, in the subsequent hearing, we'll discuss the rezoning request, and several conditions were recommended, and one of those conditions is that it would be 62 and older, and so that would have the force of the law for this development, and so that would be enforceable through our code enforcement, and also initially through our development and building permit. And so I didn't mention this before, Madam Chair, but this high-density resolution land designation that's being requested has a range of density between 6 and 16 dwelling units per acre. But should the applicant develop as they propose, they need 16.
Okay.
And Commissioner, zoning conditions never expire. The zoning condition will remain on the property until this board or a later board amends the zoning condition.
Okay. Well, we've heard a clarification now, so we've heard a motion and a second to deny. All in favor to deny? Any opposed? Okay, it's denied.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll now move into our next public hearing regarding the same property at 4205 West Village Parkway, and this is a public hearing regarding the Invictus development, requesting a rezoning from RA to RM. Again, we ask Mr. Jordan Rudisell, to present.
Chair Wood, Commissioners, this is the same subject property before you. It's located West Village Parkway here. It is located within the Fairview Road Overlay District. It's located right here, which is abutting and immediately adjacent to the Nidus development, which is Zone C2. The applicant is requesting a rezoning from RA for the subject property to RM, which is multifamily development, for the purpose of an age-restricted apartment complex. Staff has evaluated the applicant's request. We've taken a look at the location. We've taken a look at the fact that it has good access to 675 by way of West Panola and Clayton, as well as West Village Parkway. It does seem to provide a transition between the rural, low-density, single-family area moving east and then north into the Ellenwood Village area before you get to the commercial development, which has been zoned on the corner of West Village Parkway and Fairview Road. Staff does recommend approval with conditions. The first condition is that the future land use map would be amended to support the proposed development. So in light of the previous hearing, any motion to approve would need to handle that condition and take it out, basically. We do recommend other conditions. As staff, we tried to strengthen the condition that was initially approved by our Zoning Advisory Board for Condition 2, so we're recommending that it simply say net density shall be limited to 16 dwelling units per acre, period. Also, we want to nail down the fact that this is to be 62 and older. So for the third condition, we recommend that it say the development shall be limited to seniors 62 and older. It shall meet the requirements of the Fair Housing Act as well as Section 4.03.30 of senior adult housing by ordinance or by variance, and that is in our Unified Land Development Code. This condition would hold them to these regulations, and there are 2 pages of regulations, and they deal with the width of the doorways. They deal with the height of the thresholds. It deals with the fact that it needs to be fully accessible from the parking lot all the way to the front door of each individual development, and that should cover the elevators and so forth that was discussed earlier. We made an attempt to strengthen Condition 4 to say any green infrastructure and low-impact development site design shall be based upon the most current Georgia Stormwater Management Manual, and so forth. The other conditions we didn't feel like needed strengthening. So the Zoning Advisory Board heard the applicant's request. They did recommend approval with certain conditions, and staff has recommended these few changes that are before you.
Okay, we've heard the presentation. Does the applicant like to come and make a presentation as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. For the record, I'm Doug Diller with Percy Friesen Torgerson. We represent the applicant, and we incorporate the presentation we made on the comp plan. One of the things that I think you need to think about, and that is, what is the public purpose that's being served to deny this? What protection of the public health, safety, and welfare do you achieve by denying the rights for folks who live in this neighborhood to be able to age in place and have a place to go when they're 62 and older if they so choose? Doesn't mean they have to, but it gives them an option. And throughout this region and Henry County, we can show you where there's multifamily dwellings in close proximity and adjacent to single-family detached that have no adverse effect on the single-family detached. We've got no impact on traffic. We've got no impact on schools. We're providing an alternative place for people to live and stay in the neighborhood. The opposition has just talked about apartments. These are not traditional apartments. And it doesn't provide an alternative to deny this kind of use when, in fact, there's a current demand for it. As Henry County grows, and you are continuing to grow, as Henry County grows, there's going to be a greater demand on this area. This is a good residential area. This property will not cause any deterioration of any single-family homes, and the opposition's issue relative to apartments, these are not traditional apartments, nor are they developed that way. The conditions which are recommended by your zoning advisory board and by staff are acceptable to us, and we would ask that you approve this. Even though you have said the comp plan, denied the comp plan, there's not a requirement that it be consistent, although I think the transition would be logical and would be in accordance with what is otherwise happening in Henry County. Rick, you want to say a few words about the product? I think it's important to know the character and the quality of this particular product.
All right. Thank you. Rick Cavallari with Invictus Development. Just one thing to note as far as the demand. Antioch Village, Antioch Manor has a 900-person waiting list. That's a 55 and older development, but it has a 900-person waiting list. The vacancy rate in this county for seniors is 0%. So the demand is there for senior units in this area. The other thing is we build a very quality product and we maintain that product. I again repeat, there's a number of people that keep their eyes on this, and by rule, this needs to stay a 62-year and older product for 50 years. It stays in the affordable housing program with the state for 50 years. So we maintain it. They track compliance on the product, so you don't have any issues as far as this product being well maintained throughout its life cycle.
All right, thank you.
One other thing, the conditions are acceptable to us. If there are other conditions that you need to add to it to address your concerns, we're certainly willing to discuss them with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this is a public hearing, so again, we will allow 10 minutes for those who wish to speak in opposition. That is for the total group of those that may like to come. And then we'll also offer 10 minutes for the group that would like to speak in favor. So at this time, if you would like to speak in opposition, we ask that you please come forward now.
Bill Tony, again, we have enough apartments. You could put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. Apartments are apartments, and this is like a low-income type deal from what I gather, and we're definitely not Buckhead, and it's not going to be treated like Buckhead, I don't think. And again, I think we got a growth spell coming in, and we just don't need any more apartments. Again, I thank you for your vote no, and I ask you to vote no again. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Kimbrough, 117 Overbrook Place, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. Based on the previous motion that was denied, Comp AM 1707, which declined the rezoning from residential to high density, my question is, can we have multi-family residential in an area that's still considered to be not high density?
Okay, we can.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we do this? Let us finish that, and then we'll allow him to respond to that.
Okay, yeah, but because I was just wondering if by virtue of declining item under planning zone B actually didn't cancel out C, would be my question.
Okay, we'll let him come back and answer after the opposition speaks. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Chandra Lemons, 307 Cotillion Drive, Overbrook Subdivision. My initial concern was not the fact that these are senior citizen accommodations. In a few years, I will be eligible to move into one of those facilities. My concern is the future. What's going to happen if we allow this dwelling that is considered to be zoned one way. What's going to happen 10, 15 years down the road in that same area? Will we allow apartments to come into that same area with the development that's currently being proposed for building? That's my concern. And I understand right now that there's not a burden on the schools or a burden on the traffic or anything else in that area because of what the proposal is. My concern is 10, 15 years down the road. I've been in that area over 20 years and I've seen massive growth, which has been good for the most part, but I would hate to allow the possibility for apartment dwellings to be built in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Again, my name is Henry Angel, 101 Overbrook Place, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. I just want to preface this to say I moved in this area over 20 years ago. I like how it made me feel, and I want to maintain that. But I do know that we're a growing community. But can we not keep it where it's such a functional place, a community that you can live in? And I don't want to see apartments come in. I want a home, residential place where we can just share, be one good community. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, at this time, we'll now allow anyone who's wishing to speak in favor to please come forward. Again, anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Okay, well, this concludes our public hearing for this public hearing, and we now invite the applicant to come forward again, along with Stacy, and then we'll address any questions that may exist.
Yeah, we're available to answer any questions, and I appreciate it, Madam Chairperson. I've been doing this for 40 years. And one of the basic things that I understand is the constitutional right to use your property for any lawful purpose. You sit in a regulatory capacity. We've had some recent cases that might change that. But right now, you sit in a regulatory capacity, and you exercise your discretion only in the best interest of the public, protection of the public health, safety, and welfare. You have no evidence presented to you tonight that would justify denying this. Your professional staff recommended approval. Your zoning administrative board recommended approval. Your zoning administrative board gave us a variance. We've got the right to use this property. And you can't just arbitrarily take it from us. And to deny this zoning is taking a valuable property right without compensation. That violates the 5th, 4th, and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution. And I'm just saying that given what your staff has recommended, given what your zoning administrative board has recommended, the opposition has come forth with no material evidence to support opposition. Apartments, these are not traditional apartments. But there's been no evidence to show that there's any public purpose being served in keeping this particular development 62 and above, limited access, limited traffic, no school impact, no impact on the public infrastructure. How can you turn it down? Thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Rudisill, there were 2 questions that were posed. If you would respond to those as well. They were, again, what's the outlook for 10 to 15 years from now? And then more importantly, since the amendment to the comp plan was denied, what impact does this really have since this is still potentially a multifamily dwelling?
Yes, so at this time, the county is in the process of updating our comprehensive plan, which includes this future land use map. And so we're looking to bump up our planning horizon from 2030 by 10 years to 2040. So we're looking at this increase in vision by 10 years. This this Fairview Road Overlay District anticipates more intensive development in this area of Ellenwood Village. It anticipates that character area of commercial along Fairview Road. And that development needs to be supported by residential. Ideally, so that people could visit and socialize and walk and be consumers in that commercial area without having to resort to their cars and drive. This senior community, it may or may not have that sort of impact. But regardless, if this Ellenwood Village area is to develop in any sort of meaningful, intensive, dense way, it doesn't seem inconsistent to have a higher density of residential. That being said, to get to the second question, this future land use map is our policy guide, and that's what it is. It's a guide. The Board of Commissioners absolutely has the right and the wherewithal to approve a zoning of high density RM within an area that is designated for low density residential on the future land use map. That is not ideal. That's not what we would recommend, but it is certainly within your power to do that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And so to answer the citizen's question, to deny B does not automatically negate C.
Okay. And then again, the 10 to 15 years out as to, can this revert to a non-senior facility?
No,
again, will you clarify that?
If the board approves this rezoning request with these or similar conditions, and you specify that this development will be limited to seniors 62 and older, that condition does not expire. So 10 or 15 years in the future, that will not change.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Clemens.
The developer said something about limiting the units to 2 bedrooms or less. Can he elaborate on that a little bit? And let me just say while he's coming, I heard, I guess the representative say that what we should do and, the demand versus quality. And I just have to say that the opposition that came forth are our constituents. The opposition that came forth are property owners in this county. They are our voters. And so regardless of demand versus quality, those are the people that we represent. The commissioner for this area is not here now. And because he's not here, I think that it's up to this board to make sure that we listen to the opposition since they live here. So I just want to be very clear that my position in asking for how do we make sure that the things that they've talked about as far as we don't want low-quality apartments, we 100% agree with that. We want to make sure that it's age restricted. We realize this is a gateway to multifamily, and we know what the 2040 plan looks like. But there are some concerns that we have to make sure that we put in place to make sure that we listen to the opposition. So I just want to clarify that. Okay. So talk to me about the restriction of 2 bedrooms or less, which keeps us from impacting the school system, and make sure that we keep out those huge disadvantaged, large impact the community is concerned about.
Okay. Rick Cavalieri again with Invictus Development. Once we commit to a 62-year and older facility, we are compliant with that for 50 years. We cannot change the use of that. And that means that every person that lives in that facility is 62 years of age or older. We have designed, because of the demographic of the people living there, it's going to be 1 and 2 bedroom units. Typically it's 1 unit with a caregiver, one person with a caregiver, or a couple, or some cases senior sisters or brothers, et cetera, that live there. So that's a compliance issue. These are quality units. I can't stress enough that there's a misconception of what this type of housing is. If you go around and look at what's been built through this program, you'll see how quality the housing is. I mean, we have wood cabinets, we have solid surface countertops, we'll have either vinyl plank flooring and or carpet, ceramic tile in the kitchen and bathrooms. The hallways all have light sconces on them, all air conditioned, green building. You know, we'll have green building compliance and the whole development. So we're building a quality development here, and I think that it's a misconception that people have that this is going to be run-down project housing that they've seen in the past. That's not this type of housing. This has been the most successful program that the government has had for affordable housing. It's placed a lot of quality units in a lot of areas in this country, and I think you're mistaken to think that this is not going to be well-maintained and quality housing. So, and the demand is there. Like I said, there's long waiting lists in this area for senior housing. And when you deny someone the opportunity to live in a place like this, where are they going to go? Those people on that 900-person waiting list want housing somewhere, and they don't have a place to go for it. So that's all I can tell you is it's going to be a very quality place, and I think it's needed in the area. The other thing I could say is we do have 3 or 4 homeowners that came out against, but that's 3 or 4 out of how many thousands of people that live in this area, how many people who have seniors, families that have senior people that they're taking care of and having to be caregivers, that they don't have the opportunity to place someone in a quality facility close to where they live. Where are those seniors going to go to find housing? So that would be, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. How do you confirm if this is approved, or in any of your other previous properties, that individuals that actually move in are 62 years or older, and that there is, again, that it meets the clientele that you're speaking about? What's your compliance process or your monitoring process or your auditing process to confirm that these criteria are met?
I mean, every year there's auditing that takes place as far as the residents. We keep rental lists, and those have to be submitted, and then the compliance is monitored by multiple parties just to make sure that that's maintained. The problem if you're out of compliance is you have the potential to lose your tax credits. If you lose your tax credits, then that cash has to be paid back into the project. So that's not going to happen. They're going to make sure that the project stays in compliance.
All right, are there any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, we've heard the presentation. The floor is now open for a motion.
Chair, I move to deny.
We have a motion to deny. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further questions or comments by the board? All in favor to deny? Any opposed to deny?
Thank you.
The resolution is failed. Thank you. Okay. We will now move into our next item on the agenda regarding the Board of Commissioners, and this is regarding, thank you, Commissioner Holmes. I wanted to remember to bring you back in. The next item is a resolution approving our meeting dates of the Henry County Board of Commissioners, and if the board decides that they do not want to have the workshop meetings listed on the resolution, someone please let me know if you want to make those modifications. And we can update it before the execution. But at this time, we have a resolution to approve our meeting dates for 2018, and it's in Exhibit 10. Okay. The floor is now open for a motion. Well, yeah, open for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Are there any other questions or comments regarding the dates that are listed? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. We will now move into our public comment section. And we welcome citizens to voice their county-related concerns and opinions which are not listed on the agenda. All persons wishing to speak during the public comments must sign in with the county clerk and complete the public comment speaker form prior to the beginning of the meeting to be recognized. We respect the First Amendment rights of each person who wishes to address the board, and we request all citizens who are speaking to be respectful. We request that if there are any concerns regarding an individual board member or a staff member, please address those. If it's regarding a board member, please address that commissioner, and if it's regarding a county employee, please talk to the county manager. Any person who makes personal, impertinent, slanderous, or profane remarks to any member of this board, staff, or general public will be interrupted by the chair or any member of the board for disorderly conduct as a warning. If the disorderly conduct continues, the chair or other board member will request the citizen to be excused from the meeting. And at this time, we will begin the public comment session of this meeting, and we call upon the county clerk to recognize those wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners.
Chair, we have 7 speakers tonight: Tyrone Williams, Bill Toney, Rusty Perkins, Rachel Holland, Nicholas Day, Jacob Smith, and Larry Morey.
Okay, thank you. At this time, will you just come in that order? Please state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes each. Thank you.
Good evening. How you all doing tonight?
Good evening.
Good, good. Tyrone Williams, 712 Ewell Drive, McDonough, Georgia, 30252 is my address. I really just come up tonight to kind of give you guys a little bit of idea of what's been going on with Georgia Elite and our organization, that you guys gave us an opportunity to have the Avalon Park area, especially Commissioner Clemens. She's been absolutely incredible and instrumental in our program being able to have a park that we had fought for quite a few years. Wanted to come up and kind of give you guys an idea on, since that time took place in January, I think we took over that particular facility. Since that time, we have had 800 families to come through our program. 700 as part of our athletic program, 100 with our academic and community service. We actually, tonight, I just ran in, we're out delivering baskets for the less fortunate. We do that every year for Thanksgiving, and we adopt families for Christmas. So this year, we had record numbers when it came to our families that joined the organization. We got record numbers of families we've been able to help. Kids within the DFACS program, we was able to grant them some access to academics and athletic programs that the organization provided for them. We have brought in, through our tournaments that we have at the park, we have brought teams in from all over the country, as far as Minnesota. And we also have the Atlanta Falcons bringing their regional tournament through the NFL December the 2nd. So I would like to invite all you all to come out and enjoy that tournament. They just sent me a list of teams that's coming in from all around the Southeast region. And that's going to be a big, big event. We just got through doing an interview the other day with Sports Illustrated about flag football and things of that nature. So it's been a great year for the organization and for the kids. The organization is really, when I say the organization, is for the families in which we serve. We've been doing some incredible things in 2017. We already voted in that we'll start our robotics program. That's going to be in 2018. We have a 3-on-3 basketball league, training league that we're putting in place for 2018 as well. We have a new young man that's coming in. He's a master physicist. I think that's how you say that. I always have trouble with those kind of words, but he's coming in with our organization. He's going to put some things in place for science projects that the kids will be working on throughout the year. So, like I said, I just really want to kind of come give you guys a report card on what has took place over in District 2 at Avalon Park, and thousands of families have visited that park in 2017, which was a big departure from what had been going on over the last couple of years. So just wanted to thank everybody for helping us make families' life better in Henry County. I've been here 20 years, me and my family, and we're going to continue to fight. We believe in this. We're going to continue to fight to change the world through the youth of our community. That is what we're all about. And thank you all for allowing us, and thank you, Commissioner Clemens, for helping that project, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Toney, McDonough, Georgia. I'd like to speak about the golf course again. I'm gonna keep talking about this until we get something done over there. I've asked for this year's financials, and I should have them next meeting. This is the one up till now of all of what I got. We can take that negative and make a positive out of it. I do wish you folks would wake up and listen. We can do better than this. Water Authority. The Water Authority, they've got full rights to go up on the water anytime they want to. They're pulling money. That's what we're paying the Water Authority. We need to take that money and put it into public safety. I talked to the sheriff. We're over 50 officers short. We don't even have body cameras for these guys. They say they can't afford it. How in the world can y'all sit there and let this happen and not take care of these guys? It's just ridiculous. I was in a small county in South Georgia talking to a sheriff down there in Eastman, Georgia. And they have body cameras. I don't get it. Y'all need to get off your duff and get something happening here. This is what you can do. You can start the process. You didn't do it this year, you can do it next year. Get the process going. When you're paying out salaries like we are over there, we can do better than this. Okay, Ms. Clemens, or board. I had a lady come up here after I left. I had to get back to work. And she kind of beat me up pretty bad. I'd like to say, and you know this, I've never attacked you or your family in any way. I would like to make that appearance. Let me tell you, when I felt like Don Ash was attacked, when we had the previous, I stood up for Don Ash. You know I did. I was by myself. I didn't have any one of y'all to come forward at all. I was the only one that got up and spoke on his behalf. I was in a building today.
Mr. Moore.
No,
I'm sorry, Mr. Tony.
Oh, yes.
We're not going to have the, could you please address this to Board County Operations, please? If you could, we sure would appreciate that. And if you don't, we're going to have to ask you to stop, okay?
Let me say this.
No, Mr. Tony, could you please just address any concerns that you have with the county's operations?
Do you know where this was? You're talking to me now. You know where this was? This was in a post office today in Jackson, Georgia. I took this picture out of a post office, out of a federal building.
Do you have some other comments, Mr. Tony, or otherwise I'm going to ask you to please sit down?
I was attacked for that last week.
Could we now ask Mr. Tony to please either sit down or continue a conversation about county operations? We're not going to have that tonight. Thank you.
I'm Nicholas Day, 4574 Highway 212, Covington, Georgia. I'm a retired employee of Henry County. So I guess my only problem is I'm over 65 and on Medicare and happen to be on your Aetna Medicare plan. Well, I went on the telephone and called, and it took me 5 minutes to find a better plan. This plan, I pay no premiums, I have no deductible, and basically right now I'm giving y'all $212.29 a month, and I wonder what for. And if I, a person who has no affiliation whatsoever with an insurance company or agent or whatever, why in the world do you, board members who have a resident agent, not know of this plan? It's out there in the public, and quite frankly, it's with the same company. And this plan has no premium, so that would have saved me that $212. It doesn't call for me to pay a 20% copay. I do have a $9 doctor and a $40 other type physician, heart doctor. But now, I don't have that. I haven't even made my $250 deductible this year. So you ask me how much out of the pocket? $212.29 for 6 months, plus paying my doctor bills. So it did cost me. Y'all said it wouldn't cost me. Somebody asked me one time, will it cost them? It did cost me. And so I just recommend this plan to anybody that worked for the county that's 65 years and older. You can call these people. Like I said, I'm not an agent for them. You can call these people and ask them to come up with you a plan and do it before December the 7th. Otherwise, you have to wait a year. But you will save your money. I will save $2,400 right off the bat. So I recommend this, and I look at you and say, damn, why couldn't y'all have come up with this plan? I guess because I wouldn't have paid you no money. But that's the whole idea, what you are supposed to be for. A county employee that works all his life to make Henry County a better place, and then you turn your back on him when he retires. Sorry, sorry, sorry.
Thank you.
Rusty Perkins, Rockmart, Georgia. I just wanted to, first of all, come to y'all and let y'all know that I've talked to Mr. Johnson, I've talked to Ms. Matthews, had conversations with a few of y'all on email. And, I'm happy to hear that the wetlands is actually starting to be, a plan's been put in place. Hopefully it won't take long, because I was out there today and I looked at the erosion that's going on. And there's 2 areas that's almost 5 foot deep right now of the erosion, and it's going right into them wetlands. So I'm hoping before too long that, things will be where we can get, or where the county can get out there and actually start digging on it and get that thing squared away. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit. I mean, let's just say Nash Farms is my thing, so I had to bring up something, and I wanted to give y'all a little pat on the back as well, instead of a constant beat down. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what everybody calls the Civil War. Was it a civil war when Illinois' Governor Yates reported an insurrection in Edgar County, Union men on one side, Copperheads on the other, that they had to have 2 battles? Was it a civil war for the Union Army when the 109th Illinois had to be disbanded because its men were Southern sympathizers? Tens of thousands more deserted when the Emancipation Proclamation was announced. Was it a civil war in Indiana when thousands of draft resistors hid in enclaves? From the governor of Indiana, matters assume grave import. 200 mounted armed men in Rush County have today resisted arrest as deserters. Southern Indiana is ripe for revolution. Was it a civil war when Williamson County, Illinois, seceded from the state of Illinois and was forced back in at the point of bayonet? But that didn't stop many of its men from attaching themselves to the 15th Tennessee Infantry in order to fight for the Confederate States of America. Was it a civil war in New York City when a draft protest turned into a rampaging mob of 70,000. That Civil War lasted 4 days because all the available troops were at Gettysburg fighting soldiers from another land. It was a civil war when they returned and fired into this New York crowd, killing nearly 2,000 of their own divided community. The Civil War implies on faction attempting to take control of the government from another government. The South no more wanted to take control of the government in Washington than our founders wanted to take control of the government in London, England, during the Revolution. Also, I'd like to bring up a couple of gentlemen. I've talked about Holt Collier, who fought with the 9th Texas Cavalry right out here at Nash Farm. I'd also like to talk about Dallas Moses. He was a riverboat pilot. And the Secretary of the Navy actually approved, which if you go back into the 1860s, $80 was a pretty good sum of money for a man to make a month. Well, he was actually approved for $100 because the South wanted to keep him so bad. You know, all the talk about that they wasn't blacks that fought for the Confederacy. They was actually not Dallas Moses, but 3 Confederate Marines that actually surrendered with Lee at Appomattox Courthouse. You know, they fought within an integrated unit. They were whites beside them at the same time. You know, we as Americans, we got to get over this black-white issue, and we need to start moving together and trying to make not only the county, but the country a better place. We need to quit seeing the color in a man or a woman and start seeing the heart in the person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Rachel Holland, and I'm a resident of Clark County. Several months ago, I had the honor of addressing this board regarding Nash Farm, and tonight I am here to do so again. I believe Henry County has overlooked a large potential revenue stream in relation to Nash Farm, and I would like to address that. Film. As most of you know, the film industry is huge and steadily moving its second base of operations into Atlanta, Georgia. Film has an exponential effect on the economy of a county, from feeding and housing actors, crew, and extras, to gasoline and items purchased for the production, and increased tourism to a location because of a film. I would like to give you an example of this. The papers you have in front of you is data pulled from the National Park Service records. In 1993, the film Gettysburg came out. Prior to its release, the National Gettysburg Park averaged 1.2 to 1.4 million visitors per annum. Immediately after the release of the film, in 1994, the park had 1,674,532 visitors. The visitors would stay in the 1.6 million range until 1997 and 98, when it hit 1.7 million visitors. It would not be until 2008 before the annual visits returned to the level they were prior to the film's release. That is 14 years of increased visits and revenue to a battlefield, which means increased revenue to a park and town economy, as well as increased funds to the county and state through taxes. Now, I realize there may be other factors involved in this, but the constant is the stark contrast in visitors from before the film's release to after. Perhaps there's a concern that this was 25 years ago and not relevant for today. I assure you this is not so. Films, television shows, and documentaries about the war between the states are still being made and very popular. For example, My Brother's Keeper, a 360-degree short film for PBS, was made in 2016. The Free State of Jones was a major Hollywood production, 2016. Blood and Fury, America's Civil War, a television series made by the American History Channel, 2016 and 17. Mercy Street, a major television production by PBS, 2016 and 17. A film titled The Private is being filmed in Kentucky right now. All of these have been produced in the last 2 years. Not to mention the resurgence of interest in war films such as the box office smash Dunkirk, Hacksaw Ridge, Churchill, or Darkest Hour, which is being released tomorrow. People are still very interested in the war between the states, and many want to know the real history. So why not make Nash Farm a place of dual or triple income for Henry County? If you will guarantee the reenactment community the use of Nash Farm for reenactment and perhaps a drill weekend and school days for the same price that we have been paying previously, you are guaranteed income through the park annually. Why not guarantee us those days and allow the museum to be reopened, continuing to tell the unbiased history from both sides of the war? Then Henry County could market Nash Farm to movie makers and show what prime real estate you have here, both for its historic value as well as for the purpose of filmmaking. Hollywood is always scouting for good multifunctional locations. Let them know what you have. Rebuild the breastworks. Show them there is a place to film battles, the Trail West, range wars, or other scenes needing wide open places, and is conveniently located to their base in Atlanta. Hollywood also like reenactors for historic pieces. Sam Elliott was interviewed after his role as Brigadier General John Buford in the film Gettysburg. He spoke very highly of the reenactment community and how reenactors knew more than the filmmakers on the topics and issues of the war itself, and the tactics used. And most of all, he said, quote, "We could not have made it without them." By working with reenactors, we are guaranteed to bring revenue into your county for our events. Hollywood often calls reenactors when making historic films, such as with Gettysburg. This means that we can affect the income of Henry County by whether we agree to work at a film on this location or not, or whether we will recommend this location to filmmakers. We would like the option of helping Henry County. If the county markets Nash Farm Battlefield to filmmakers as a multifunctional site and they decide they like the location, it would bring substantially more income into your county. When movies are filmed, locations are used for blocks of time so they could easily be filmed around our reenactment events. And when neither organization is using the battlefield, it would still be a location for events such as weddings. Rather than one sporadic income and a continued battle over Nash Farm, you have the potential for 3 income streams off the same property. I believe this would be a much better use of the location while preserving the history. I humbly ask the board to consider this proposal strongly and at the minimum, give us back the reenactment and open the museum telling the unbiased truth about both sides of the war so that people may learn, draw their own conclusions about the right or validity of each side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board.
Good
My
evening.
name is Jacob Smith, and as many of you may already know, I'm a Hall County resident. Last time I decided to address the Board in the persona of a Confederate soldier, and if you haven't guessed by now, due to my garb, I am addressing them tonight, or addressing you tonight, from the perspective of a federal soldier. I am a son, brother, husband, and father. I came from New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, even all the way from Ireland and Germany. From farms, factories, and offices, I answered the call to fight for my country. Save the Union was my rallying cry. To fifers' tunes and drummers' beats, I marched into the jaws of death. Like my rebel counterpart, I fought, bled, and yes, even died for a cause that I believed in. Today, our nation has been forever transformed as a result of my actions. However, it now seems that the struggle in which I lost my life is in danger of being erased. Must my sacrifice be forgotten because the war I fought offends the delicate sensibilities of some politicians? Surely, these people must realize that by destroying the battlefields on which I laid down my life, that they are attacking the legacy I left behind as well. Does this desire to destroy history stem from ignorance or avarice? If it is the former, examine your education. If it is the latter, then examine your heart. Either way, the plans to desecrate this sacred ground are deplorable and nothing short of disgusting. When will this madness end, Henry County? In your blind hatred of my foe, you are unwittingly stomping upon the blood which I spilled on the altar of this nation in order to make it whole again. Artillery fell silent, musket barrels grew cold, and the smoke cleared. Decades passed as swords and bayonets rusted in their scabbards. Meanwhile, we men of both sides went home to our families where we belong. We would, however, occasionally meet each other on more favorable terms. If we were able to put aside our differences and walk away as brothers, why can't you do the same? I am the Union soldier, and the legacy of my sacrifice does not deserve to be erased. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Mothery, and I'm with Ethics in Government. You know, my mama was a good woman. She said, "Be wary of those guys that speak with a forked tongue. They act like the devil." So, you know, we had a group come in here the other night and talked about that school right there, about how great they're doing. That's off the state website right there, a week ago, the same night that we left here talking about how great. And you know, I'm not down on anybody that works in that school system, not one of them. Feel sorry for them of having to put up with foolishness they put up with. You know, poor old Steve Cash, I think he.
Please not refer to Mr.
Well, he's the one that led the group, but how are you going to say who
Well,
the
can you
group
speak,
was?
can you speak
He
to
was
the
one that led the
issue?
group,
Can you
wasn't he?
please speak to the issue, Mr. Maury?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then we got this parent that comes up here that's outraged about statutes. And her and her husband is head of the NAACP. You know, I think we as parents in this county should be mad as the devil about that right there. We ought to be outraged about right there because we got 29 schools failing in this county. And we don't get outraged for that. But we'll just go crazy about some statutes. We just get crazy. You know, I don't believe that's what the problem is. June, I believe it's hate. I really do. I really believe it's just pure hatred. And you know, you stopping people.
Can you speak to the board, please?
I believe you need to be careful. Now,
And if
I
you
want
make
to
one
cross one
other
more thing about
disparaging
insurance.
comment, you will be excused out of the room. So if you can speak to the issue, you can speak. If you're going to address and have defamatory comments about individuals, we will excuse you from the podium.
And we're going to talk about insurance. Well, he's left, bless his heart. We warned y'all a few months ago about insurance, and y'all didn't listen. Y'all just keep letting it go on. Your insurance premiums are going up, and your coverage is going down. I even brought an expert in here to explain that, and nobody listened. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait till the next few meetings. We're going to lay some facts and figures out there of what's really happening to the money and to the coverage that you are letting people be literally taken advantage of in this county. So we're going to bring that out in the next few weeks, and we'll let it go where it is. Now, last thing I'm going to cover, I got a minute, 57 seconds. I asked y'all to do something about the voting board. I gave it to y'all a few months ago. Nobody's ever called me, so I don't reckon y'all even care. You know, this voting board took me before a kangaroo court. Your attorney sent the attorney general two different stories that we don't know which one was true, which one was false. Y'all replaced a few members of that board. You left one on there that voted that day in my kangaroo court, and he was appointed by the man that we were in the meeting about. But nobody does nothing about it. It's just like a kangaroo court. It means what it says. But nobody done anything about your attorney. He either lied to one writing or he didn't. One of the other.
Can we please excuse Mr. Maury from the podium, please?
We shall return, as MacArthur said. The truth must be heard.
You're out of order, Mr. Maury.
You ain't the only one, sir.
Any other comments? Okay, well, this concludes our public comment section, and again, we thank those that did participate. At this time, we'll now move into the approval of our minutes for the November 7th regular Board of Commissioners meetings. Are there any questions or revisions of those minutes? Hearing none, we now call for a motion. We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Any opposed? We now will move into the chair and commissioner comments. Are there any comments from any of the board members? Commissioner Prince?
Sherry, county manager, I don't have the information in front of me, but how many officers are we down right now?
Commissioner Prince, we are currently down by 19 officers. It's my understanding from staff that on December 5th, we will actually add an additional 5 officers to our roster, which will take us down to 14. I know at the last meeting you did inquire about receiving an update from the police department, and we do typically do those type of updates on morning meetings, so staff has already prepared the presentation, and we'll have that available for December 5th.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from any commissioner? Commissioner Wilson?
Do you have any information on the golf course financially? Because I'm curious if Mr. Tony's figures are correct.
Yes, sir, and if you all will recall, during the board meeting last month, I did provide an update to the board regarding our financials for the quarter. And I know it was a lot of information and failed to highlight the golf course, but wanted to make you all aware of a couple of things because I do want to clarify. I know that there's been some recommendations made in terms of leasing some of the facilities at the golf course, and I just want to remind the board that as a governing authority, we don't have the ability to enter into long-term lease agreements, and so that is certainly something that if we had the option to do, we certainly would consider. In terms of the financials, as you all are aware, we did provide a quarterly update, and based on the information that we received thus far from June until September of this year, the golf course has actually brought in $21,841. What we will do, and I did mention to you all during the last meeting, we are going to start providing monthly updates to you all, and we'll make sure that we also update the golf course because I think that's important for everyone to hear what's coming in and what those expenditures are. So I hope that information helps, but we will be prepared in January to provide a more detailed report.
And how much was the golf course budgeted on this budget year?
We budgeted for the golf course, hold on, oops, sorry. Give me 1 second. Give me a second. I'm going to see if I have it. If not, come back to me. I will provide that information to you.
Okay, we'll give you a few more, and if we do need to schedule an update, we can do that as necessary, because there's been lots of questions and discussions about the golf course, so I think it would be good to have a thorough update at some point. You got it?
And we will do that, yes.
Okay, you would prefer to do that? Okay. All right, Commissioner Clemens, and then, of course, I have a comment. I don't know. Okay, Commissioner Clemens.
I would just like to say I appreciate the members of Hall County, Clark County, Forsyth County, Georgia County, and all the other counties that come out monthly to talk to us about Nash Farms. But I just want to not really set the record straight, but give some pertinent information about Nash Farm Park that's in Henry County. Unlike the golf course or the other museums, our county buildings, parks, and everything else, et cetera, that the county has incurred debt on. The thing about Nash Farms Park is that there was an $8 million debt that was placed on that park. And in that $8 million debt, not District 1, 3, 4, or 5 has ever paid a dime to the debt of that $8 million for Nash Farm Park. That debt was given to District 2. The citizens of District 2 have paid $8 million, not even finished yet, the impact fees for District 2 has went to pay every bit of the debt for Nash Farms Park. So when we talk about the park, we understand what the park is for. The citizens of District 2 love the park, never asked for anyone to move, never asked for the museum to be closed, but we have taken a beating and also paid for the debt of Nash Farms Park. I will continue to support agricultural, the green space, and I thank the guy from Clark County that comes up and makes sure that our wetlands are protected and everything about that park is protected. This park will continue to be developed as a place for wildlife, our birds, our Audubon organization of the state of Georgia. I think the District 2 residents that are here that go out and make sure that the birds have a safe haven on that park. The green space, we love it. We will continue to protect it, but no citizens of Henry County pays for that debt but District 2. So I want to be very clear why I'm adamant about making sure that we protect it, preserve it, and that's where we are. Those facts can be looked up, call the county office, and know that the impact fees of District 2 are paying the debt of Nash Farms Park. I will go on to say that Sue Wainwright, who was a longtime employee of Henry County, has been out from us. I thank her for reaching out to me over a month ago when we decided to do the resolution on cancer, because we have one of our members of this county who has been home, and I want to keep her in our prayers. She worked for the police department and several other departments of this county, Sue Wainwright, so keep her in prayer during this holiday season. I want to make sure that we remember her at this time. And to say that District 2 is well and thriving, that during the weekend of December 2nd, we have a national hockey tournament, that our MYA, the hockey area down at the arena at Avalon, they are participating. We got Florida, North Carolina, and parks and leagues from all over Georgia that's coming to District 2 for the national hockey tournament. We also have the NFL, the Falcons is bringing down the flag football to District 2 at Avalon Park. So we're concerned about our parks. We're concerned about the citizens of Henry County enjoying these parks and making sure that anything that they want us to have at those parks, that we listen to the ear of our constituents that live here and that pay taxes and pay the debt of the parks in our county. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Sherry, maybe at another meeting, it would be good also to give an update on where we are in the insurance solicitation process, since that was mentioned as well earlier today. So we probably want to just give an update about that in the future as well.
And I will just let the board know that that has already been scheduled for the first meeting in January, and we have been working with our broker and our HR department to make sure that that information is provided. I do want to let the board know, and any retiree know, that we heard them loud and clear in terms of the insurance during the initial meeting, and shortly thereafter we've had several conversations with not only our broker but also with the provider for our retirees. We take that very serious, and we want the board to know that we are looking at all of our options as we go into the new insurance cycle.
Okay, very good. Are there any other comments?
Yes, just a couple of comments. I do want to, and if comments are provided during the public comment period, and I think that it would be advantageous for the board to hear, I do want to make sure that I'm following up to provide you all with that information. This evening, there was a comment raised regarding the Board of Elections, and I do want the board to recognize that you all only appoint one member to the Board of Elections. All other members appointed to the Board of Elections are appointed by the local political parties. So I did want to just provide that clarification to the board so that you all would be aware of that as well. And then finally, just wanted to wish all of our board members a wonderful Thanksgiving and to thank our staff for a job well done. Myself and Brad have been in this role for about 8 months, and I will tell you, no day is the same, but we both respect and recognize what we're trying to do here at the county, and we could not do it without the support from all of you all. I know we don't always agree on everything, and that's part of it, because that's what we should be doing, having some constructive criticism and having some fruitful conversations, but I echo all of the comments that have been made tonight. We are really striving to create a Team Henry atmosphere here at the county, and just want to thank you all for supporting not only myself, but Brad and this entire staff. So happy Thanksgiving to you all, and looking forward to a great new year with all of you all.
Well, thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to you, your team, and also all of our employees and those that are here in our audience and those that are watching, and of course to our colleagues here on the Board of Commissioners. All right, well, regarding our upcoming meetings and events, on December the 5th at 9 o'clock, we will have our regular Board of Commissioners meeting, and then there will not be a regular meeting scheduled for the third Tuesday of December in 2017 due to the holiday. So we now will open the floor for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.